how do you find people? You know, your companies like Star Helix, Aphelion, Stars Edge, all working slightly different aspects, looking for slightly different skills. What's your views on, does the UK have the right skills? Is it developing the right skills? And do you have challenges? That's a three-part question. But Jamie, yourself.
It's kind of a relevant one in terms of our chronology there, Bruce. So we're just onboarding a new staff member, and he came through. He sent an email that languished in one of our inboxes for the better part of 2 months. It was really unfortunate, actually, because we could have used his help earlier on. But that just seemed to be a completely naturally drummed up lead. He had become aware of us through word of mouth and was kind of sold on our mission and reached out to us. So there's, and his skills, by the way, are hard won through the UK, but in a lot of collaborative projects with like internships in UK companies that have ESA links. So he was involved with some integration and testing and AIT stuff generally at the sort of multinational level. And he's able to bring that in-house for us, which is absolutely incredible. But that just came pretty naturally. I'm afraid I don't really have a better answer than just our hiring process, Bruce, has been based almost entirely on luck. And I'm just hoping that doesn't run out anytime soon. But there's for sure a skills shortage because it's quite an insular sector, but I don't think I know enough about what that landscape is. I'm not a technical founder, so I couldn't really speak to that. Everyone looks like a technical expert in some ways to me, so I'll pass over on that one. But
Mason, from your perspective, what are your feeling about the skills availability within the UK, and how does that fit in with the growth plans for what Star Helix are doing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to be a part of the skills working group for Space Scotland, and there's definitely not enough supply for the growing demand up here. I mean, it's something like we only have 5.5 million people up here, but we account for 10% of the space workforce or something like that. We bring in 20% of what space, like Scotland is overrepresented in space for what they do, but we're finding that as more companies grow up, if we say we get another bigger company in here, it would just wipe out the whole ecosystem of available talent out there. So we've got high quality talent, we just don't have enough of it. And I think that comes back to like one of the things that we try to do is STEM outreach anytime we can. So getting into school. So that's the longer term play. But I think now you're starting to see like Strathclyde University, Edinburgh University, Glasgow, Aberdeen, looking towards the Space Agency and Space Scotland to identify programs they can start integrating, whether they're apprenticeships that are funded by the government or actually university programs that could upskill or reskill or give students an opportunity to get into that next level. I mean, I guess as a early days micro SME, we sometimes look for people with less experience because it gives them a shot or something like that, but we can kind of afford it where we are right now. But I know as we grow, we're going to need more established engineers going in the future, and I'm not quite sure where I'm going to find that yet.
Fascinating. Again, a theme which we're hearing continually. Heidi Thurman was talking to me earlier on about this, and regularly she posts through the Skills Space Alliance that message, we haven't got the right number of people coming through, and it has to be a process starting, as Jamie alluded to, at the schools level, but also, I think Kate will echo this, got to look outside the market. Kate, how are you addressing this skills shortage on a Friday afternoon?
Well, I want to actually give a shout out to two initiatives that I think are working well. One has just lost funding from the space agency, but the SPIN internship, where it was placements into the space sector, and they have to work on projects, and it's very much about theory marrying up with practicum. I think that we need that back. I'm just going to say that it needs to come back. I think we need more things like that across the, universities up in Scotland. They need to be looking at models that work like that, for example, and then integrating them into what they're actually going to be offering the curriculum. And I think also the University Technical College of Leeds is another great one where it's like a technical college. Like we have them a lot in the States. I don't see them as much over here in the UK, but it's a way for young people, age 16 older, that don't want to go to university, but they're really curious and quite adept in like maybe more technical expertise, especially engineering of all sorts. And it puts them into very much a hands-on way of working, and then basically taken straight into industry. So I'm a big proponent of that, where there is a bit of a faster turnaround on young people being able to get into the sector and learning those really, really important skills. I know that a lot of founders, I don't know you guys personally, but I've spoken to a lot of founders that they are open to taking people like, younger people in that are really hungry and ready to learn. Obviously someone who cold emails you, Jamie, is obviously someone who's really wanting to get into the sector, but they're happy to teach them and to give them a way of growing within the company. So that's another thing that we're placing people that, maybe have a decent background, but are also having the appetite. And I think also when it comes to middle management and kind of the higher level C-suite types, that's the harder placement for sure. But again, it's people that maybe have come from a different industry background, but have a lot of really applicable experience that needs to be put into this sector. I think that the space sector needs to be much more open to allowing that to happen, and to be much more receptive to these type of people, because I think there are enough out there. It's just we're kind of still not being really open to that, allowing that to happen. But I think that's starting to change. We're definitely seeing that changing for sure.
And Sarah, your company is obviously, I've met a number of your colleagues over the last 12 months. What are your thoughts on the whole skills availability and how that impacts upon Star's Edge?
I'm going to take the devil's advocate approach here and say that there isn't a skills shortage in the UK. We are far too saturated when it comes down to a lot of what the UK does very well. The UK has been at the forefront of a lot of space technology ever since the space race became a thing. And we're very good at legacy space, very good at communications, very good at satellites, very good at, even propulsion and things like that as well. And to the point where the UK is one of the best places to study space and to study a lot of how to get into space. Shout out to, where I did my space masters, Cranfield. Most people in the industry have gone through Cranfield. And this is something you'll see globally as well. When it comes down to a lot of the new space, it gets to the point where it's exactly that. We're having to poach people outside of the sector because it's not just about legacy space anymore. We need all these different skills in all these other adjacent sectors, which now are key when it comes down to space. Exactly your programming, your software, things to do with chemistry, new materials, whatever that may be, where that educational focus is not in the UK, and that training and that upskilling is not, the UK is not leading in that, which is why we're seeing more and more we do need to hire overseas, or we need to then bring in people from overseas with those skills. And I think it's counterintuitive to reinvent the wheel in the UK and just try to upskill and outdo these countries that have had it for much longer. And it is just then easier to integrate them with our society instead. Some of our greatest engineers, they come from abroad, and we're having to then look into sponsoring their visas for them to stay, or looking at setting up shop abroad to really supplement that technology need and that technology skills that they come with, And more as we, back into the whole World Space Week, we need to start thinking more global. It's less of a, we need to individually do our own things, but there's so much talent out there. It's a waste to not use it and to not really rely on other people and siloing ourselves even more. So I think we're very good at what we do. I think the issue is not continuing to fund and upskill a lot of these same skills. We're very good at what we do already. It's really start looking at how can we cooperate more with our neighbors, I think that's where the focus will lie more in the coming years.
Okay, from your perspective, is it easy to get people to be able to work in the UK now? I mean, you hear a lot of tightening up regulations, etc., and there's a whole political conversation about that. So when James and
It's
Sarah
difficult.
and Mason want to find the right person, is it becoming increasingly difficult for you guys or not?
I'm just going to answer really quickly on that one. From our perspective, it is a bit more difficult. The Global Talent Visa exists out there. It's still being sponsored by TechNation, which is kind of a fast track for highly skilled laborers to come over from overseas without a company having to sponsor them. So the burden of paying for the visas on the applicant, it's I think around 5,500 now. It keeps going up every year. Every visa seems to tick up. I've been on 4 different iterations. I'm finally a British citizen myself after 13 years. But it is more difficult. But I totally agree with you, Sarah. I absolutely think that we need to be making this a global way of recruiting, and I'm open to that. I just think government needs to get out of our way and make that easier.
I will have to say some of the things that have come out recently that really were kind of exciting in this news that it's always bad is the UK actually looking at trying to pick up some of the talent that's coming out of the US now that the H-1B costs 100K. Those are those kind of opportunities that, you know, the UK has been a net exporter of great talent, even as much as we stumble across our own feet. So if we can show, and again, I think this comes back to telling the story, if we can show that there's these amazing opportunities, especially in new space here, and then also attract that next level of talent that's being pushed away from some of the bigger countries that are seeing immigration as such a bad thing, that the UK has an opportunity. But again, it comes to like funding and stuff like that, is we just need to basically lobby to let people know, like, hey, don't miss this. This is the next opportunity for innovation in this country.